Hey everybody, this is a reading strategy I found from one of my daughter's friends. I really thought it was kind of a cool thing that our teacher came up with. I added a little piece to it that I wanted to have for our classroom. So it started off being called Grand Slam. I turned it into Grand Shlam because I wanted to add a little piece to it. So anytime we're doing a reading sheet in the classroom, if we're doing a comprehension sheet, I really like the students to go through these steps. And in the classroom I keep a whole stack of these available on cardstock so they can look at these steps and ask themselves if they're doing it. So let me explain what these look like so you can kind of use bits and pieces of it at home if they're ever looking at a reading selection. So when we're getting ready to read and answer questions, first thing we do is we get our brain ready. So get everything cleared away from us. We have our pencil, if we need a highlighter, we have our highlighter, and we have the reading selection. So we're getting our brain ready, we're setting up the area. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to read and we're going to underline the title. Now this is the part that you really got to push your students to make sure that they actually take the pencil. Sometimes I tell them to underline or squiggly underline or underline it and put fangs on it. I just want their hand going under that title because it draws their eyes to the title and it forces them to read. If I just say read the title, some kids read, some kids don't. If I do add that kinesthetic portion to it, it forces them to look at that title because then we can start making predictions about what the story's about. Okay, we can start making guesses about what's going to happen. That's what good readers do. After that, all paragraphs get numbered. So I tell the kids, look for where it's indented and start numbering your paragraphs. Now, the main reason for that is so that if I have a student that comes back to me and has a question, I don't want to just give them the answer, but I can at least narrow the focus for them. They can say, I don't know, they're asking me, how did this character feel? And I can look and say, right away with my teacher eyes, I can go, okay, it's in paragraph 6. But I'll say, you know what? I want you to reread paragraph 6, and you're going to find the answer there. So I'm not actually directly giving them the answer, but I'm narrowing the field for them. So numbering their paragraphs helps us to do that. Okay. Now we want to read the questions. We're reading the questions before, so we know what we're actually going to be looking for. And while we're reading, we want to decide if they are book questions or brain questions. And what we mean by book questions, we mean these literal questions, like Clifford the big red dog. What color is Clifford? Well, he's red. How do you know? It said it right there in the story. So that would be a literal book question. And I tell the kids when we're, looking at those questions, to draw a book symbol by the ones that they think are a book question, that they're saying, I'm going to find this in the story. If it's a brain question, an inferential question, that's one where we have to think. Maybe we need to gather a bunch of different pieces out of it to build how this character is feeling. If we're talking about, how would you describe Velma Jean in the story The Bravest of Us All? Well, she's brave. Why? It didn't say she was brave any place in the story. There is not one sentence that says, Velma Jean is brave. And they can go, well, at the beginning, she walks across the sandburr patch. She stands up to Alfred the Bull. Okay, these are all evidence that she's brave. So that's brain question. You've taken evidence and you've built your answer out of it. And these are the questions that I tell the kids when you were a little kid, and we draw our gross little brain. When you were a little kid in 1st or 2nd grade, those are the kids that go up to the teacher and say, I can't find the answer. The reason they can't find the answer is because it's not a book question, it's a brain question. We have to build it from the pieces we find in there. Okay? So we've done all this, and this line right here tells us this is all the stuff that we do before we even start reading the story. This is to get set. So grand is to get set to read the story. Now we get to the reading portion of the story. So down here, we start reading the story. And when we start reading, we have our pencil or we have our highlighter with us. We want to highlight or underline, and this is the part that takes a lot of practice for 4th graders, because some kids barely highlight anything because they're too focused on just pronouncing the words if they're a struggling emerging reader, and some kids highlight everything. And you know, if you highlight everything, nothing really stands out. So it takes practice to understand, what am I highlighting? Okay, what do I think is going to be important? And I tell the kids, pretend you were writing a quiz about this. What would you underline? What would you highlight? What questions would you ask? Start there, okay? After we've gone through the whole story and we've underlined and highlighted, look back in the story to find book answers. So if it's a book question, start searching around and say, okay, well, where is that book question? I said it's going to be in here. Where is it? Answer every part of the brain questions. Brain questions tend to be extended responses. Give me one characteristic to describe Velma Jean. She is brave. How do you know? I know Velma Jean is brave because, and I have to explain myself. Okay? Make sure you've answered all your questions. Do a once over on your sheet. Sometimes people use the finger rule and they go down and make sure they've answered every single question. And then you're done answering the questions. That's how Grand Shlam works. And feel free to just pause this screen and kind of take it in and use bits and pieces of it. Sometimes I just tell my kids, oh, I want you to underline the title and number the paragraphs, if we're just doing a reading sheet in group, just so that we have a reference point. I want everybody to jump down to paragraph 7. Everybody knows exactly where they're going. We're going right down to paragraph 7. We're not wasting any time. That's Grand Shlam. Hope you enjoy.